Good evening, friends. Welcome to the new live session on Vijesh Exports Mastery channel. The Imranji, welcome. Good evening. Let us wait for a few minutes for more people to join, and then we'll start our topic today, which is the common mistakes which are done by exporters. So we'll discuss about what are the different common mistakes which are done by the exporters. Let's wait for a few minutes. Prachaji, good evening. Welcome to the Exports Nation Daily Live on VJ Exports Master channel. So, friends, uh, I hope you had a good weekend, and we will be having the daily lectures now in this week from Monday to Friday. And today, I had planned for a discussion on some of the common mistakes which are done by exporters. So, I think the discussion on this will be very useful for any person who is either new or established exporter. It is always good to have the knowledge of the areas where the mistakes are possible. In fact, in today's session, I would really like you to give me your suggestions also, that which are the areas where the common mistakes are possible by the exporters. So I will add some points of mine, and I'll be very very happy if you can identify some of the areas where the chances of mistakes are very very high by the exporters. And the pre-knowledge of these areas where mistakes are possible can result into many safety angles, many savings of the financial losses and the less risk in the export business. So it is always good to know the areas. So I, because of my experience with exporting, very very long experience with exporting, and a very uh, long experience training the people. Aziz ji, good evening. Welcome to Export Nation Live. So we are discussing today the common areas where mistakes are possible for the exporters. So I was just saying that because of my long experience in the practical exporting as well as in training, I had been interacting with a lot of working people who tell tell me about the type of mistakes they made, on the basis of which I keep on creating some case studies. But at the same time, it will be good for you also if you can do some brainstorming in your mind and identify the areas. So I will give you some ideas, you also give me some ideas, so it will become useful for everybody. So whatever the ideas you give, I will explain to everybody those ideas where mistakes are possible. So to start with, let us discuss about some of the mistakes which exporter do in the documentation part. So we will first focus on documentation, and in the second half we'll discuss about the areas of mistakes in the procedures. So I think this will make the whole session structured and organized. So to start with, Yusuf ji, good evening. So, welcome to the Exports Nation Daily Live on VG Exports Mastery channel. Today, we are discussing the different areas, possible areas where mistakes are possible by the exporters. So, I was telling that to start with, the most common mistakes in documentation which are done by exporters are with regard to giving the wrong information in the documents. So, what can be the wrong information? The wrong information can be the contact person details or the contact details, or even the addresses, or even many times even the company names can be wrong. So these are very very basic things. And friends, let me tell you, what happens is that many times I have come across, so it is not very uncommon, that many times, because you're dealing with the foreign buyers who have who have a different language, so they are used to a different language, you are used to some different language. So due to this communication gap, language gap, many times the contact person names or the contact details or the addresses can go wrong, because when you share the information with the buyer that you are adding these addresses, sometimes buyer thinks that it is there is a difference because of some language error. So these kind of mistakes due to language are very very common. There can be many other reasons, but in spite of the fact that somebody will feel that why such mistakes are possible, but these mistakes do happen. Pradeep ji, good evening, welcome to the live session. Today we are discussing about the common mistakes which are done by the exporters, and I want you also to come out with some of the areas which uh, which has to be looked into by the exporters, where the possibilities of mistakes are very very common. So to start with, I told you that one major area of mistakes is the giving the wrong information. Now, this wrong information can be across the documents, or it can be in any one of the documents. So you have to be the exporters has to understand that the mistake in any single document is also can also be equivalent to mistake in the whole documentation. So it is not that your commercial invoice has contains the correct information, your packing list does not contain the correct information, so you can do with that. So it's not like that, because packing list is required as a commercial document to go with the shipment, as well as it can be asked by the bank also, it can be asked by the customs also, it can be asked by the quality certification company also, inspection agency also. So many agencies may ask for the packing list. So it is whatever the information is there in the commercial invoice, the same information should be aligned with the information given in the packing list. So wrong information is a very very common thing that can erupt, you know. So uh, so many times what happens that the information which you give in the documents do not match with the information which is provided in the letter of credit. So now the question is whether the mistake is in the letter of credit or it is the mistake in the documents. So you have to clarify it before accepting the letter of credit. So suppose in the address some line is missing in the letter of credit, and you are writing that line in the documents, sometimes it can lead to some mistakes also. So the addresses, contact details, etc., should be aligned in all documents, because in banking, if you are doing business through letter of credit, banks deal with documents only, they are not dealing with the shipment. So everything should be perfect, information has to be perfect. So this is one area where wrong information can lead to major mistakes. Friends, second area of the very common mistakes, which can be really very critical, is the wrong classification of the goods. That is the ITC-HS code. So a lot of mind has to be devoted to finding the right category of the products. ITC-HS code. Now, one should know that the ITC-HS code of your country may not be exactly same as the ITC-HS code of the importing country. So how do you align that? So that also has to be checked out. So you should know what is the exact code for ITC-HS code which is followed by the home country customs, and what is the ITC-HS code which is followed by the host country customs. I had already given you in one of the session how to find out these two differences through Indian Trade Portal. Even if you find those differences from Indian Trade Portal, you have to recheck it with the buyer. That as per your information, the ITC-HS code for this product is this in your country, so he should be able to confirm it. Yeah, that what ITC-HS code you are putting for your documents, these documents are going to his country, whether those documents will be accepted by the host country custom. So these things has to be aligned. Generally in 8 digits. That's why generally in the documents, you generally give 8 digit ITCHS code. Generally, 8 digit ITCHS code should be correct. It should be same in the home country as well as the host country. But still, it is important to check. I will give you one example, very important example of these kind of mistakes. So, when we talk of the precious, for example, jewelry containing the the studded diamonds in the jewelry, so the main value is of the diamonds, and then you have the value of the gold. So diamonds can be of two different types. One can be the natural diamond, the second can be the laboratory created diamonds. Now, ITCHS code for both the diamonds are different. So now what happens that suppose you classify them as natural diamonds, and if the local custom or the host country customs inspect the goods and find out that these are not natural diamonds but rather the laboratory created diamonds, so the ITCHS code is different in India. In many countries it is same, but in India it is different. So what happens, friends? The custom may feel that you are trying to do some intentional mistake in the ITCHS code for some reason. So which may be for the benefit of the buyer also, because at the importing country you are trying. I mean, there can be a feeling that there is an intentional. It is not a mistake. It is an intentional thing that you want to help the buyer with lesser import duties, or you are doing some undervaluation or overvaluation. So these things should actually match with the real thing which is there. So if the diamonds are natural, then the ITC code should reflect the natural diamonds. If they are laboratory created diamonds, then the ITC code should be reflecting that diamond only. And what is the situation in the host country? Whether the ITCHS code is same for both the types. So those things has to be very much aligned. So those kind of mistakes should not be done. So ITCHS code again is a very critical area where the mistakes are possible of the exporter. So these two things. So yeah, Yusufji has suggested the mistake in the HSN code. Yeah, harmonized system number code. So this is exactly what I was talking about. These mistakes, harmonized system is there. Up to 8 digit, it is harmonized, but beyond 8 digit, it may not be harmonized. So those mistakes should not happen, and it has to be checked with the buyer. So you should communicate with the buyer that this is the ITCHS code which I am using, and you can request the buyer to check at his end also, or you can even take the benefit of the trade consulate of that country, host country in your country. You can visit them and you can check with them that this is the product, and maybe they'll charge you something. They will help you out with the HSN code. So these are some of the areas which I've just mentioned. So if you can suggest some areas, you do suggest me, and then otherwise I will tell you more areas where the mistakes can be there. So two areas I have shown you. Two areas I have told you. One area is about the wrong information. Second is the HSN code, harmonized system code, ITCHS code. Now, third area, if you have no more suggestions, I will tell you the third area. Third mistakes can be uh, the mistake in giving the documents to the bank. Many of the times, the exporters are not aware that what exactly documents have to be given to the bank. They You cannot go just by the LC documents. So whatever is written in the LC is not everything. There are documents beyond LC also which the banks may require. So that is the job of the negotiating bank who is charging with you. So it is better to check with the bank that what are the documents like covering letter, the bill of exchange, packing list, because packing list sometimes is not there in the letter of credit, but the bank requires packing list. So exactly what documents are required, exactly what language is required in the covering letter, exactly what information is to be added in the covering letter. So During dealing with the banks, when submitting the documents, presenting the documents, this is another third area where the mistakes by the exporters are very very common. So three areas I have told you. If you can share some more areas, try to think over it, that what can be the other areas. Otherwise, I will tell you more areas of mistakes. Okay, so I will tell you the fourth area. The fourth area of the mistake is the description of the goods. So, how do you describe the goods in the documents? ITCHS code information you have. The buyer has given some description. You had given some description in the performer invoice. Now, finally, in the commercial invoice, what description should be there? You have to check with the CNF agent, you have to check with the buyer. The description, and finally, the description should match with the LC. How it will match with the LC? It will match with the LC if the, yeah, I'll just come to, usually I'll just come to your point. So, how will it match? When you are giving the draft LC instruction, at that time you have to be very very careful about giving the description of the goods, and you should request the buyer that the same description should be used if you are sure that that description is correct. This description matters a lot at the time of inspection, at the time of quality inspection, quality certificate testing, quality testing, at the customs export declaration. Everywhere this description will be very very important, and there can be disputes with regard to RDCHS code if the description is wrong. So at the time of giving the draft LC instruction to the buyer, on the basis of which the buyer will make the final LC instruction, at that time you have to be very very sure that what description you are giving. You might have given some description in the performance invoice, that is okay. You can do away with the wrong information, wrong description, or not so good description in performance invoice. But after that, you have to be very very clear about the description of the goods. So that has to be very very important. You should not go by books. You have to check with the people. And many times, if you know somebody who is already exporting those products, try to find out what description they are using. If you can get hold of some past documents through your CNF agent, try to find out what description people give for that kind of products. So many things. Now, UCG has given one another mistake area is the expiry date in case of food and drugs. Yes, absolutely right. So the expiry date is very very important in case of perishable items, especially food items, drug items. So any item which requires expiry date or any kind of date of manufacturing, date of expiry, and any kind of information, labeling information, which has to be there in the packaging. Those those details, these are the areas where mistakes are very much possible. Absolutely right. Mistake in the expiry date in the case of food and drugs, or many other items, many other perishable items, the expiry date may be there. Now, there is the fifth area, sixth area where the mistakes are possible is the failure to give the right declaration for the dangerous goods. So many times the exporter is not aware that a particular item can be dangerous in the exports. I will give you one very very simple example. Many times you don't know the item which you are exporting can mean something else in the international market. So one example I will tell you: recently a shipment was made by one exporter of a local brand which they exported to Dubai, UAE, of the Indian, some local brand. Local means Indian brand of so-called Thandai. Thandai Sharbat. Now, Thandai Sharbat contains some ingredients which are classified as banned drugs in international market, especially in UAE. So you are not aware because in India everybody drinks thandai. Thandai is a very very common beverage, which is part of any many beverages which we normally use in India. So the exporter failed to declare that ingredient in the labeling and in the documents, and it came out to be a very very serious matter actually, because in many countries the contents of thandai are the banned substances are there, which are classified as narcotics. So these kind of mistakes are very much possible. Even the many people are not even aware of the dangers which are associated with many products which they are exporting. So they fail to give the correct labeling, which is the international requirement on the packages of the dangers which are involved in that particular item. So this kind of mistakes are very very common. Failure to file the dangerous goods form, or the if those items are there, the scientific packing of those items which has to be declared in the dangerous form, that whole process people fail to do it. So these are the sixth area where the mistakes in documentation are possible by the exporters. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are absolutely right. Poppy seeds, which are used in Thandai, are banned in Middle East countries, and this is a very very common item which is exported actually in because there are so many Indians who are living there. So many times it has created a lot of problem. Sometimes some shipment has gone unnoticed. It happens. If it is gone, is gone. But if it is caught, then the exporter who is very clearly giving the sender's name and the receiver's name, both the parties are in big problem. So this is only one example. There can be many some similar examples. So poppy seed is only one example. There can be many other examples of the ingredients. For example, I'll give you more example. If you are exporting Ayurvedic drugs, Ayurvedic medicines, many of the items can be really critical in the host countries. They won't know about it. They don't know whether they can be used for human consumption. I one more example I'll give you. I think I had given this example in my earlier session also. If you export, for example, makhana, which is very commonly eaten in India, as snacks also, as salted makhana, or makhana is very common and it's very expensive item. You all know. Now, makhana till date has not been certified as something which can be eaten by humans in the European countries. So you can only export makhana in the European country as a cosmetics ingredient, not as a edible item. If you write makhana as a snacks, or if you describe this item as something which is food item, it will not be allowed to enter into European countries because it is still not recognized. They don't know about makhana. They have absolutely no knowledge about makhana in European countries. So, in fact, I might have shared this information in the earlier session. One of the company in India which is into makhana business, they are they are fighting for months with the European nations to understand this product and allow it as a food item, because in India it is very very commonly used as a food item. In many countries it is used. So it is not that all the countries are banning it, but I'm talking about the European Union. So it is these kind of mistakes are very very common in the documentation and understanding the product. So you have to understand the product, you have to describe it correctly, you should know where you are exporting. So these are some of the very very common things, common mistakes which you do in the documentation part. And especially in the, as I just mentioned to you, the bank documents, you have to be very, very careful. So you need some professional advice, actually. Somebody from bank who can give you some consultancy, that how to file the documents on case to case basis. So you cannot just copy somebody's papers who might have used, because the situation may be different, your situation may be different. So somebody has to understand complete information from your side. And when you are giving the documents to the bank which are going to get you money, the documents which you are going to give to the bank, they'll get you the money. So that is the area where you have to be very, very careful. What covering letter you are giving, what bill of exchange, what you are writing in bill of exchange, what you are writing in the bank documents, and all the documents. So these are some of the very common mistakes which are done by the exporters as far as the documentation are concerned. So before we talk about the procedural parts, the common mistakes which are done in the procedures, if you think that you can suggest any area which we might not have covered in the documentation part, the areas where the mistakes are commonly done by the exporter, please let me know. Otherwise, I will jump over to the common mistakes done by the exporters in the procedures. So we will discuss about the procedures. So first, I wanted to talk about the documentation part, where we identified some really informative information like description of the goods, about the wrong information about the HSN code, and about the bank documents, which are many, these kind of mistakes are very, very common. And many times mistakes can happen in the export declaration also. So, or one more mistake, I'll just it just reminded me of one of the incident about the failure to invite, intimate the local authorities for inspection, EIA inspection. If EIA inspection is required, what that formality has to be done. Many times the uh, that mistake is possible. So Aziz ji has asked one very important question: LC revocable or irrevocable? Please explain. So friends, now first of all, LC has to be irrevocable. That is for sure. A revocable LC means that once it is opened by the issuing bank, it cannot be revoked. It is only one way. It is not two way. One way means if it is open, the money has to be paid. You cannot revoke it. If the bank revoke it, then you can go to the arbitration at ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, Paris, or in the international court you can go if it is a big amount of LC. So you can go for arbitration as per UCP. Now here the importance of UCP comes. UCP 500 also is very common. UCP 600 is also very common. In the case of UCP 500, if the LC is under the version UCP 500, it should be very clearly mentioned in the terms and conditions of the letter of credit that this LC is irrevocable. Only then it will be irrevocable. So if the LC which you have received is as per UCP 500, the line condition should be there that this LC is irrevocable. Otherwise, there is no use of that LC which is revocable. In very, very rare case, you will work on a revocable LC in a very, very rare kind of condition. But 99.9% your LC has to be revocable. Now, in UCP 600, if the LC is there, it is by default irrevocable. Irrevocable, again, I'm explaining to you. Irrevocable means once opened, the LC cannot be revoked. It will work. You, the moment you present in time the documents, you will get the money. So that is the explanation about the LC revocable or irrevocable. In UCP 600, by default, automatically it is irrevocable, even if it is not written in the condition. In fact, to make it revocable in UCP 600, there has to be a condition written that this LC is revocable. So obviously, you will not accept that LC. if this condition is there, that this LC is revocable. So I hope you have understood the difference between what is the revocable LC and irrevocable LC. So once you have asked me this revocable and irrevocable LC, I think you already know what is the uh, LC payable at site and the usance LC. I hope you know the difference between this. So many of the audience which do not know the difference between the LC payable at site and usance LC. So LC payable at site means if you when you present the documents, the payment will be made in a reasonable time by the issuing bank, which can be 5 days in the case of UCP 600, which can be maximum 7 working days in the case of UCP 500. So that is the meaning of the letter of credit, which is payable at site. Now, there is another condition. If it is not payable at site, then it is called the usance LC. Usance LC means that there is a usance period by the bank. The meaning of that is, yeah, usually I'll just come to this consular invoice. I'll just come on that point. So, usance LC means that there is a usance period involved for the issuing bank, the meaning of which is that when the issuing bank receives the documents, in 5 days or 7 days, in the LC payable at site, it had to release the payment. In this case, in the users LC case, the bank will not release the payment. Bank will release the acceptance letter that the documents has been accepted by the bank. And when you receive this acceptance letter within the users period, which can be 30 days, it can be 15 days, it can be 60 days, it can be 90 days, as per the RBI regulation, generally it is 180 days, but nowadays you can have even higher also because RBI has relaxed these norms. So you can have a very long usance period also of the bank. So whatever is the usance period, after the issuance of the acceptance letter by the issuing bank, after the usance period only the payment will be made. So I hope you understand this difference between the LC which is payable at site and the LC which is usance LC. Now, uh, Yusufji has suggested one area where mistakes can happen is with regard to the consular invoice. Now, here I want to tell you that the consular invoice cannot be different from the commercial invoice. So, whatever is your commercial invoice, exactly same commercial invoice, one copy has to be given to the consular office for their endorsement. Now, it is up to the consular office whether they accept that description or not. That's why I told you that description is very, very important. So, ITCHS code and description both has to be absolutely professional. So, depending on the description what you have given, the consular office may accept and endorse the commercial invoice, which becomes the consular invoice after the endorsement, or it can reject. Now, generally, they will reject on the fair justice. Fair justice means they will reject if they find, even if you have given very correct description, everything should be correct. Actually, after depending on the ITCHS code, HSN code, and the description, they will decide whether that item can be is allowed to be exported in that country or not. That is the purpose of the consular invoice. So every country, like in India, you cannot import certain items which are very easy to import in many countries. So very few items are there where you cannot import in India. Similarly, there are many items in Gulf countries or in many countries where the import is not allowed, but it is possible to export those things in many other countries. So consular invoice is purely the prerogative of the consular office. So I hope you understand this thing. So you cannot do any changes. You know what? Once your commercial invoice is ready, it has to be exactly the same. So I think now we have a fairly good idea about the possible areas of the common mistakes by the exporters in the documents. Now, friends, let us talk about the common mistakes in the procedures. So before I give my ideas, I invite your suggestions, that what are the areas in the procedures where common mistakes can be done by the exporters. So I'll give you half a minute to think over it, 30 seconds. You can think on some of the areas where the mistakes are possible by the exporters as far as the procedures are concerned. So if you can think and suggest what are the areas which are possible in the procedures. So I invite your suggestions before I explain my ideas. I'm very thankful to the audience because they really helped me actually in identifying the areas in the documentation part. That what are the common areas of mistakes, and I'm very happy that we have been able to identify some really some very good areas where mistakes can happen or not happen. So you may think that mistake can happen, but actually mistakes may not happen. Okay, so commercial invoice, as I have already mentioned, with the documentation part, Aziz ji, commercial invoice main area is the wrong information, possibility of wrong information, or the mistakes in the, for example, the description. Mistakes can happen, for example, in the payment terms. Uh, okay, now one more session has come by one of the audience. Akashji, welcome to the Exports Nation Daily Live. You want to know about the RCMC document. Now, RCMC document are registration cum membership certificate. It is very, very important document for claiming the export incentives for each and every export shipment and many other benefits which you get from EPCs, export promotion bodies, and FIO, Federation of Indian Export Organization. So RCMC document, RCMC is obtained by the exporter by becoming the member of the recognized Export Promotion Council, or FIO, Federation of Indian Export Organization. So when once you become the member, better to become the member of your respective EPC, which deals with your product, so that you can get the maximum benefits from the EPC. But there is no mandate; it is not mandatory. You can become member of any EPC, or you can become member of FIO also, and you can get the RCMC document, and you can use that RCMC documents to claim export incentives. Whatever the benefits are there for the exporters, you will get it. So that is about the RCMC. Now, UCG has suggested mistakes in the reefer container settings. So it is absolutely right. Uh, when you are exporting through reefer containers, so although the general procedures are very different, the documents are the general procedures are very similar. The documents are also very similar, even if you are exporting in reefer containers. So depending on what item you are exporting, depending on what type of reefer containers you have, and there you will have the right, you cannot use the same specification which you use in the normal container. In the reefer container settings, in reefer containers, you should know what spaces are available, what are the limitations. With those limitations, with that knowledge only, you have to create the packing list. So it is very right. Yusufji has very correctly identified that in the case of reefer containers, mistakes can happen in the packing list. So you have to get some professional advice, and you have to have the complete knowledge of, for exports through reefers. So that is absolutely right, and that is true for the difference between the shipment by air and shipment by sea. So in the case of sea, you have the normal containers and these containers, reefer containers. In the air also, you have their the own different sizes, own pallets, and your reefer containers. So that knowledge, that specifications are different for the different types of containers and different types of shipments. So that has to be absolutely, you should be, exporter has to be clear. before making the documents. Now, coming to the procedures, the maximum, the major mistake which is done by the exporter is the lack of preparation before soliciting orders. So, especially when you are exporting some item for the first time. If you are exporting some item for the first time, any lack of knowledge about the procedures can lead to the last minute delays. So, I will give you one example. Suppose you are exporting food items and you have not done the proper preparation. Later on, you come to know that you need food safety license, even if it is not required by the buyer. There are some regulatory requirement of the local government also. So, suppose you are not having the safety certificate and your shipment is ready, everything is ready, you don't have the license, safety license, and now you have no time left because you failed to do the preparation before soliciting the orders. This is one example. The other example can be that you have not understood as a new exporter that there are requirement of obtaining, for example, the authorized dealer code number like AD number from the bank. So your shipment is ready now. Before you make the shipment, you need a AD number, and you are running after the bank to get the AD number. You don't have time. At the last minute, you realize that something was required which you are not ready with. So these kind of mistakes are very, very common. Your lack of preparation before the business. As a merchant exporter, for example, you are procuring some item from a factory which is 600 kilometers from your office, and at the last moment you realize that you have to coordinate with the inspection agency which has to visit that factory, and you have no time left. So you are not planned for it. Your preparation was not there. Now for 600 kilometers, the route is not very good. There are narrow roads are there. You will need time to take the inspection team there and get it done. And you realize that in the packing has to be provided by you as a merchant exporter with your own printing on the packages, which is not ready because you had not made arrangements for printing for those goods. So goods are not packed because that printing material was not ready. You are not even aware that there is a some printing facility near that factory, which is that you are not made the arrangement. So these small mistakes, I'm just giving you the example. The lack of preparation before you start soliciting the orders. This is one of the major procedural mistakes which are very, very common by the exporters. Even if you are a seasoned exporter of certain item and you are exporting to a new country, you sometimes the exporter fails to understand the difference of exporting in one country with the difference in exporting to another country. The requirements may be different. So that is another example I am giving you, that even for the seasoned exporters, the requirement may be different in a different country for the same item. The test report, the standards, the quality certificate, the regulatory requirements may be different, and you are not ready with that information. So this is the one of the most common mistake which is done by the exporter in procedures. So this was one. Now, friends, we are running short of time today. So I will quickly tell you the other items which are areas where the procedures mistakes are possible. One I have already shared with you. Another mistake which is can be done by the exporters in procedures is the failure to negotiate the right payment terms with the buyers. For whatever reasons, for whatever you have done it, you are not aware of the problems associated with certain payment terms, like bank collection. You think that bank collection, there is no problem because you are sending the document through bank, and the bank will sell the documents to the buyer and you will get the money. It may not it may be possible that you have already shipped the goods have reached, but the buyer is not there, buyer is insolvent, or whatever has happened to the buyer. There is nobody to take the material. You are not ready with the second plan B. If the buyer do not buy the documents in bank collection, what will you do? Will you bring it back to India, those your home country, those goods? Now bringing back is a hell of a difficult job, getting the goods back in your home country. Not only in India, in most of the countries, it becomes an import. So there are certain formalities involved. It is not very easy to bring the material back. So these kind of mistakes, friends, in the negotiation of the payment terms, are very very common. Then third area, friends, is the mistakes in the deciding of the right incoterms, international commercial terms. And as I had mentioned to you, the most common international commercial term, which is most popularly used and very balanced term, is the free on board, that is the FOB. Now, if you go for terms like D terms, like DDP, delivered duty paid, then getting the goods cleared in the host country, getting the shipment from the seaport to the warehouse of the buyer, and dealing with the customs, local custom, it can be very very expensive, friends. So depends. I'm not saying that everywhere it is like that, but many a times, most of the time, it can be really very expensive. And incoterms has to be negotiated and decided in such a way that the overall cost of the transaction is optimized. So what best can be done by the seller should be done by the seller. What best and cheaper can be done by the buyer should be done by the buyer. And the decision of incoterms should be based on the overall optimization of the cost of the transaction. So procedure failures are possible, friends, in that area. So, friends, these are, in my opinion, some of the most common areas where mistakes can happen by the exporters as far as the documentation are concerned and the procedures are concerned. So, if you have any sessions with respect to any other area which you feel, you can send me a direct message to my WhatsApp number, and you can suggest me some of the other areas which I can share in the next session also for the benefit of the audiences. So if we have missed any areas where mistakes can happen by the exporters, we can definitely take it up in the next session also. So for today, these were some of the things which I had thought of sharing with you, based on my experiences, based on the feedbacks which I received from the my trainees and my clients. So these few things which I myself found and encountered, the mistakes done by the exporters, I just shared with you. And it will these things which I have shared with you will give you a fairly good idea of the different areas where you have to be very very careful while doing the documentation and procedures. So friends, in case you have any session, you can give the session, I can share with the audience. Otherwise we can call it a day today, and we meet tomorrow, and with a new topic, with new discussion, and new knowledge, and maybe some case studies also. So we'll call it a day today, and then we'll meet tomorrow. Good night. Goodbye. Thank you.